Great. So this is a practice defense. What do you mean?
Hopefully.
Okay,
Actually, I
let's go.
did a mock run, so we'll figure it out.
Oh, it's proposal defense. Yes, it's not it's
Yeah.
just proposal.
Yeah. So hi everyone, and thanks for coming. Today, I'm doing a mock presentation for my PhD proposal on my research principle of sparsity for efficient deep learning across computational paradigms. Hopefully, I'll get to hear some feedbacks. And since this is public, I'll just do a disclaimer. There might be some errors here and there, maybe some references missing, since it's still like 6 days away, the official one. I'll probably like fix those in the meantime.
Yeah, put comments on YouTube if you see any
Yeah.
reference that you want
Yeah.
to see the
Yeah, but yeah,
actual proposal.
I apologize in advance.
And then,
But yeah, so um, I'll start with like deep learning has been in the news everywhere in the last 5 to 10 years, and we have seen like a huge amount of successes from deep learning, uh, such as like with our large language models, which is revolutionizing our interaction with information, replacing search, things like AlphaFold, changing how people do protein research in biology, also won the Nobel Prize, and also AlphaGo, AlphaZero, things like that, changing games and other research avenues, basically changing the whole scientific industry as a whole. And yeah, so even though we do see a lot of success from deep learning and machine learning, there are a lot of challenges as well. Especially, we see that the models are increasing in size and computational requirements, like almost extremely fast. Uh, Even large companies such as Meta and Google are thinking about doing building nuclear reactors to power and train some of these models. So a huge challenge is how to reduce the cost and computational demand of these models while not sacrificing on the performance and capabilities of these models. So one avenue or one way to address this challenge is to leverage sparsity. Uh, and why would we even like think of doing that? One of the reasons is that the only prototype we have of intelligence, uh, I mean, probably only, is the human brain, and it does leverage sparse connectivity, and it's very efficient. So we do have like one prototype that we know can do most of these tasks very efficiently. And in the realm of deep learning, we have also seen previous works, which I will go over later in the presentation, that shows us that it's possible to have sparse models with smaller footprints that performs just as well, if not better, or like similar to the dense models performance in terms of training, inference, and also we could leverage those things in various other settings such as federated learning. And all of those result in some sort of computational savings, at least the potential for it, or reduces communication or other aspects of the training process. So in this, in my research, we have focused on sparsity in across some computational paradigms of deep learning, mostly supervised learning, reinforcement learning, and federated learning. And in each of those avenues of research, we try to address some challenges of those specific to those domains with sparsity as a tool. in supervised learning, we noticed that a big problem was with regularization, tuning of regularization to get sparse solutions. So we try to develop controllable sparsity through group projection in the realm of supervised learning. In the setup of reinforcement learning and federated learning, we have multi-objective or multi-task setups. And for those, we also try to address the challenges using sparsity as a tool. So the general research, my research has three aims that I'm proposing. The first aim is to develop controllable group sparse projection techniques for deep learning. The second aim is to develop sparse subnetwork discovery for efficient reinforcement learning. And the third aim is to develop sparse subnetwork discovery methods for communication efficient federated learning. So some preliminaries before we start with the research and the aims. Why would we think that sparsity could be a solution that could preserve the final model performance while giving us benefits with computational efficiency and faster inference or like better model performance? So one central theme is the lottery ticket hypothesis, which was published in, I believe, 2018 by Frankel. And it basically says that when you have a randomly initialized dense neural network, there always exists a subnetwork within that model, which if we train in isolation from scratch, would result in the final dense model's performance with similar number of iterations, with some caveats with larger models that are like large LLMs, where we might find those subnetworks a bit later in the training instead of initialization. But mostly this has hold true for a range of model scales and classes. And another work, fundamental work, that is magnitude pruning, basically posits that it assumes that weights with the smallest absolute value or magnitude are least important, and you could probably get rid of them. And in a 2014 work, Songhan did a similar sort of study where they just simply thresholded below a weight value across the whole model and just fine-tune the rest of the parameters to get models that perform just as well. And you could get very sparse models through this simple technique. So when we threshold or prune, what do we mean is here is a very little example with 4x4 matrices. Basically, we have the whole weight matrix in a layer or some sort of linear projection, and we create some sort of binary mask, and then in the forward propagation or in the forward pass, we just do a element-wise multiplication with the weight matrix to get like a masked weight matrix that is zeroed out in the elements corresponding to the ones and retains to the zeros and retains the value with elements corresponding to the one. And this is how we extract the subnetwork from the larger network. And we can do all sorts of further processing, such as training from scratch, fine-tuning, or other sorts of interesting algorithms from there. But this is just basically the fundamentals of how you get a sparse network in essence. So let's start with the first aim of the research that I'm proposing, and it's to develop controllable group sparse projection techniques for deep learning. For this, I will just start with what research we have worked on and proposed. Basically, with the current state, since the models are becoming very large, we need some sort of controllable sparsity uh, to get rid of the regularization parameters, and also to have more control. Since with sparse projection, we can project at any time during the training process. Uh, for this, the controllable parameter that we introduce is we set an exact target sparsity between 0 and 1, and our method would result in automatic projection and automatic optimization of each of the column vectors to the best possible approximation to the original transformation represented by the initial weight, so that it is has uh, L2 distance distortion. So that is basically the essence of this research project. And the benefit is that we don't have tunable regularization parameter. Instead, we get to set an exact target sparsity. So here we'll just show some single vector projection. For basic single vector projection, the idea is that we're minimizing the L2 distance between the initial vector and the final vector. And when we have with some sparsity constraint, and this would result in a vector that is sparse, that meets the target sparsity, and it's as close to the original sparsity, original vector as possible. But we extend this to the general case with more than one vector. So the way we do that, we frame this as an optimization problem subject to a constraint to each of the vectors, and put that in a sparsity constraint, and then solve the optimization problem. The sparsity metric that we use, that you could see is SPX, is the Hoyer sparsity metric, and it does have some benefits such as it's differentiable, it's smooth, and it also has similar nice properties that help us to optimize this problem in a nice way. So the way we use this projection operator to in the CNN models is basically say we have some convolutional filters, and we reshape them in a flat way and make them flat, and then convert it to a matrix, and then use the GSP operator on that. It sparsifies each of the vectors, and then we reshape them back to the initial convolution filters, and then use those filters to do the inference. And we do some fine tuning after we sparsify the weights of the CNN, and that is to like regain some of the accuracy, but we do keep it sparse in the forward propagation during the inference time. So here are some results for the GSP against some baselines. You could see that a similar method called deep Hoyer was also released you could see that in the table, and we consistently outperform them, especially in the higher sparsity. Outperform deep Hoyer across the board, but magnitude pruning still did quite well in the lower sparsity region, but in the higher sparsity region, GSP did better than the other baselines, which were magnitude pruning, random pruning, where we randomly prune out with the same target sparsity, and also the dense baseline. And this is pretty interesting because you get to, with the deep Hoyer, you would need to run it again and again, and to tune the regularization parameter. And on the right, we also experimented with single shot GSP. Basically, what that means is we trained the convolutional neural net to the final accuracy. Then we just projected the final weights once, and then we did some fine tuning with lower learning rate to get back some accuracy. Whereas the depoyer was the full training and full regularization fine tuning, and then the final result, which is like twice as long as the single shot GSP. And even with single shot, we get comparable or better performance compared to depoyer. So this just shows that these kind of methods are very interesting and would get rid of a lot of the computational demands with training sparse network, which are already pretty nice in inference time. So
I have a question.
Yeah.
Did you notice any difference in performance? Optimizing for like your desired sparsity level right away and then fine tune versus do that in several steps until you eventually get to the sparsity you actually want.
Yeah,
Including the fine tuning in between. So like you go for, I don't know, 10% sparsity first, fine tune on the remaining weights, and then go for 10% sparsity for fine tune again, keep going. Do you see a difference when you eventually get to the desired sparsity?
Yeah, with the when you have like that sequential increase of sparsity, it usually turns out with better performance. So it's actually another technique called iterative magnitude pruning, where they do that. That was like in the earlier slide when I mentioned water ticket hypothesis. So that paper, they do those experiments where they sequentially do it. It results in better like models, better performance, but it takes a really long time because they try to get back the accuracy in each cycle. And if you don't do that, like if you GSP baseline on the left, what we do is that we just do the same number of total gradient updates, but we just have like a set. We divide it in like linearly spaced steps where we just choose, okay, we'll just do projection. After a set number of steps, we'll do a projection after a set number. And then just that is the
comparison is exactly what I'm asking about.
Yeah, on the left, not exactly because it's like it just doesn't go through the whole process, but yeah, kind of close to what you were saying. Yeah, and on the left is just one projection.
You're just keeping like a budget constraint.
Yes, that's the induced GSP on the left, on the right table top that you see is basically on the whole of the left table. So the whole of the left is just induced GSP across various sparsity levels. And on the right, we just compare the final of the induced GSP with the single shot and the depoyer. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, this is basically our experiments on the large scale ImageNet classification on ResNet 50. And as you can see, this is the sparsity versus the accuracy trade-off, and our method is at the top on the pink, and we show that across the sparsity spectrum, GSP performs quite well compared to the rest of the regularization-based techniques. So some key takeaways is that we have only one single lob to control the whole sparsity. Accuracy is pretty good, even at extreme sparsity region, which is one of the main benefits, because magnitude pruning does quite well, and GSP sets itself apart at the high sparsity region. There is adaptive power vector freedom as well, and this is like a general technique. You could use it on other problems potentially, and you could just put it as a drop-in replacement.
So what you're not saying, or I'm getting distracted every time you're saying that, is that use of horse sparsity and use of group sparse projection. So let us interpret the regularization as a ratio directly. Put it to 0.9, put it to 0.99. It is 99% sparsity. In other places, it's just a regularization term, which you have to figure out what it is. You kind of dancing around it instead of just stating it. What's the reason of using it? I think it is a huge advantage.
Slide,
or somewhere. It's a huge advantage.
Well, it was there. In just the previous slide.
It should be here.
Like it's the first one. I don't know if you said it or not, but I read it as that.
Yeah. But it didn't appear before in a way. This is motivation of using horse sparsity. Why would you use horse sparsity at all? It appears out of nowhere to me.
I have one slide at the appendix. Maybe I'll put it back in.
No, don't worry about slide. Just stay
it. Yeah, okay.
Like slide may be useful.
With like the diagrams.
But like you're just throwing horse sparsity at us.
Okay.
Without motivating and GSP. Or maybe.
Yeah, that's fair.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree that horse sparsity is not the first type of sparsity someone might think about.
Okay, that's fine. So on the rest of the proposal, for aim 2 and aim 3, we kind of use similar techniques, and those are to discover subnetwork through gradient-based saliency during initialization or throughout the initial training phase of the model, both in the case of efficient reinforcement learning and in federated learning. So I'll quickly go over the subnetwork discovery through gradient-based saliency. So the way gradient-based saliency works is we estimate the effect if we took out one of the parameters from the model and then test out what the change in loss would be. And this is similar to the Taylor approximation of the neural network, and just slightly perturbing it and seeing how the loss changes. And with some derivation, this could be derived to be the same as the weight times the gradient of the network, which we call the saliency score of a single parameter. It's just a weight times a gradient. And in the aim 2 of multitask and general reinforcement learning, sparse learning of reinforcement learning setup, we find task-specific parameter saliency for each task in the multitask setup and also in the single task setup. And in the aim 3 of the proposal, in the federated setup, instead of the multitask, we focus on client-based subnetworks, where we find client-specific subnetworks in local clients and then devise a way to do federated aggregation. So with subnetwork discovery with gradient saliency, basically the way this process works is if we have a neural network, we try to calculate the gradient with weight times gradient, and we find out all the weights of the connections that meet some saliency score threshold. and then we just keep that part of the subnetwork and get rid of the rest of the connections. So at the end of this process, we have, say we want to keep 40% connections, we have 40% remaining, and this would what a subnetwork would look like. Yeah. So
do you ever get by chance no weights remaining on the last layer?
That is a thing because like
on any layer.
Or any layer.
But yeah.
So you could get it, but almost you never get it. But to ensure it doesn't happen, because the saliency scores are like they're real numbers and not binary. So when you try to pick out the threshold of the mass, you could do layer-wise statistics and always keep like 60% of the highest saliency score parameters within the layers. That's what we kind of do. And sometimes we have seen that if we keep, since these are like networks, you could just keep the last and the first layer intact, which we actually didn't do because we didn't need to, but many works do that to get like better accuracy. Like heuristics, I guess. So just for a quick motivation of the reinforcement learning setup, even though this is not the main goal for this research, but just to point out the unique challenges in this setup, I'll go over it. Basically, we have an agent in an environment and it can take an action. And based on the action, it gets a reward. And over a lot of interactions, over a lot of time steps with the environment, it gets a kind of cumulative reward that it tries to maximize. And the reason is that because our gradient saliency based technique relies on data to generate the saliency scores. In the reinforcement learning setting, the data is gathered and not it doesn't exist, especially in the online reinforcement learning setup. So it poses some unique challenges on how we calculate the gradient saliency scores. So in the multitask setup of the reinforcement learning, like we discussed, we have subnetworks, but we try to find different subnetworks for different tasks. Say we have n tasks, and we want to train in the same model, the n different tasks. We pass some data of each task through the model to calculate the task-specific subnetwork corresponding to that task. So if we have n tasks, we have n different subnetworks in the model. And when trying to run that task or do inference on that task, we only activate that subnetwork. And for other tasks, we would activate their corresponding subnetworks. So this is a general idea. With that in mind, the way we actually do the training and inference is that we found that because of the online nature and the change in data distribution, we couldn't reliably do gradient-based saliency scoring with one fixed data set. So the solution is to do some adaptive mask realignment as we train the model. Basically, just calculate the saliency scores at set steps, and after some point, we freeze the subnetwork that we have updated in the initial phase of the training process. So in the figure, if you see, there are like 4 different versions. So SSC is like the model that we use, is the soft actor critic. But the best performance is with our solution that is data adaptive pathway discovery. And the way we do it is after some gradient steps, we continuously up to some gradient steps, we continuously adapted the mask, recalculating the saliency scores and doing moving averages. And at the end of that, we freeze the network and then train that final subnetwork that we found after some gradient steps. This is different than without freezing, where we continuously update, and you could see the blue graph. So without update, our like conjecture is that the model continuously tries to choose between different subnetworks. And if we go back to the lottery ticket hypothesis that we discussed at the start, where we know that there exist multiple subnetworks, and our conjecture is that it just jumps around between those subnetworks and never settles down, and the model never gets a chance to fine tune on a set subnetwork. But if we freeze the network, it turns into like a more stable training process, and we do get very good training. So the experimental setup is on a few tasks. One is the continuous both of them are continuous control tasks. The first ones are half cheetah and walker 2D. They're basically some environment where very primitive agents try to learn how to walk and do other sorts of actions. And in the meta world is and that is a single task setup, the Mujoko. And the meta world is a multitask setup with 10 tasks. And these are basically continuous control robotic tasks where it's like opening drawers and picking stuff, things like that. So in the benchmark with SSC DAPD, the method that we propose continuously outperformed the other method, the SSC dense, which was the dense model, and Regal and RLX2 were both regrow and prune method, where they found a random subnetwork at initialization and then tried to update it based on gradient signals. Whereas instead of random subnetwork at initialization, our method, we use the gradient saliency to find the initial subnetwork and then update it again at certain steps using the gradient saliency again. So that's the difference between SSC DAPD and the other two methods, Regal and RLX2.
Did you limit the number of epochs, training epochs to be the same?
Yeah, they were all of them. Yeah, they were all the same. So in the first curve, it's the learning curve. And in the second plot, it is the performance at different sparsity levels. And the third one is sample efficiency. Basically, in RL, sample efficiency is how much data you gather during the exploration of the total learning phase. And as we can see, like the performance is consistently better, and also the sample efficiency is better as well, especially the mean sample efficiency. Also, the variance is quite tight with this method, even compared to the dense one, which has all the parameters, and ours doesn't even have all the parameters active. So that's we believe that's some sort of regularization effect going on that results in those phenomena.
So when you are updating the weight, that's so first you do some kind of pruning, right?
Yeah.
Then you freeze, but you keep learning those weights that are not frozen.
No, those are like not
Also, you actually freeze the weights.
Yes.
Okay.
You freeze the weights, and yeah, by we keep say one subnetwork that is like a binary mask, and we just train the weights corresponding to that mask, and the others are zeroed out, and those are never updated. But then we do gather the scores of those with like a run average for before one change mask update phase. So at the start, we have like a short mask update phase where we allow, say, every 500 iteration, we train on the same mask. And after we change at the 500th iteration, we have gathered like some average of the saliency score with exponential moving average. And then when we change it, we say like we have the mask, and within that mask, we have 10% like lowest saliency score, and outside the mask, we have 10% highest EMA scores. And we bring on some of the like dead weight and get rid of some of the active weight from the row. And we still have the same sparsity budgets, but we now have like a different subnetwork. And then we train this again for 500 iteration. And we do this for like the first quarter of the learning phase. And up to that point, after that, we just decide heuristically that now we have like a good subnetwork. Because if we don't do that and just keep continuously changing, we get the blue curve.
Right.
So we just decided like at that point where the blue curve drops, we will just set the final subnetwork. And what if we just freeze the subnetwork that we got so far with EMA and everything, and just train it, and then you get the like pink curve.
Right. But how do you still get improved performance? It's still training, right? After that, after you freeze the weight.
By freeze the weights, we don't freeze the value of the weights. We freeze the binary. We freeze the binary
mask.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's why, and then we keep training the weights. It's kind of like fine tuning. Yeah.
Is there any like? I guess I didn't get that from the motivation. Is it maybe let's say from this point onward, you keep training with the binary mask phase. Is there a benefit to using your previous higher phase sparsity approach?
I mean, we didn't test it.
I think there is an issue with like the data is being sampled as you're training.
Right.
But with past data, would you be able to do something like that?
I think we could. Yeah. Ideally.
So there is potential here to combine.
Yeah, there is potential.
Because it's a very different way to do spark.
Yes. Yeah. With that, we could also go with the projection route. Yeah, we could potentially do that as well. Yeah. So the next would be aim 3 of the proposal, and that is to develop the sparse subnetwork methods for communication efficiency in the federated learning paradigm. So just a quick primer of the federated learning process, where we have n different clients and we have n different objective of the same objective, and we could do like gradient averaging, but also like model averaging. We went with the model averaging route, first proposed by McMahon in 2017. And basically we trained n different models at n different local sites, and then after some set iteration, we communicate them back to the server, the state of the 5 models, and average the weights, and then communicate back to the clients again. I'll probably skip this slide maybe. Yeah, so this is the setup. So the gradient saliency scores that we talked about previously is again used in this setup as well. At k different clients, we use the local data of the client to calculate the saliency of the parameters at those local clients. Then we send all of those saliency scores back to the server and aggregate them, and then find a global saliency score that is true for that is a good approximation of all the data sets across the clients. And based on that, we find a global mask that we use on the client sites to train them. So to approximate the non-IIDness and the imbalanced class distribution, we use the non-IIDs C410. And for that, we use the Dirichlet partitioning, where if we set the alpha to infinity, we have equal class distribution across all clients. And with Dirichlet alpha 0, you would result in each of the client having only one class. And we experiment with somewhere in the middle with alpha 0.3, where we have like very imbalanced distribution across the clients.
Yeah, it's just
Oh yeah,
infinity to 0.
okay, yeah,
Because the other numbers in the middle are
in ascending order. Yeah, yeah. Thanks. Yeah, so with C410, we got pretty good results with our method, with which is better than our the closest method, which was DiskPFL. And DiskPFL basically trains the model with a random mask at initialization, and then they do the same sort of real based updates where they start with the random pruning and then slowly update the mask using gradient based signal. Whereas in our method, we do the same with gradient based saliency scores and update the mask with the gradient based saliency scores for a few training epoch and then set it. With C400 and Tiny ImageNet, we see SSFL, our method, equally perform better compared to the rest of the techniques. And finally, one of the questions we have is that the mask that we find with the gradient-based saliency score in the federated learning setting, is it actually capturing the local intricacies of the data, or is it is in the parameter level, or is it performing well because it finds a good sparsity budget for each layer? And for that,
you need to fix the caption on that last to both. They're both C410, presumably left,
okay.
right is Tiny ImageNet.
Yes, yeah, thank you. Yeah, so we permute the mask within each layer, basically to find out whether if similar allocation of mask within each layer is the deciding factor, or whether the saliency score works with parameter level granularity. So basically, the idea is that within each layer, after with the gradient saliency mask, say we found the mask structure of the row 1, and we keep the budget the same, but we permute the ones and try to figure out if that changes performance. So this is to separate out the effect of the layer-wise budget versus the parameter level budget. And basically, with this experiment, we could see that with the blue curve, that is SSFL, that is the parameter level actual masking found out by the gradient saliency scores. and it performs pretty well across the sparsity level. But with interlayer permutation, we get the orange curve that kind of shows that a lot of the performance gain comes from the sparsity allocation per layer that the method finds out. And even with global random mask, that is the green curve, with global random mask, that is, we totally randomize the mask across the model, and the local random mask are we randomize the mask within a layer, within the client, sorry. And with these differences, we could see that the gradient saliency metric actually finds out parameter level masking that is beneficial for the parse learning task. So future work, we would like to move on to a similar sort of setup, but for multimodal learning, where we would want to find out sparse subnetworks that corresponds to each modality. Say some of this modality could be neuroimaging, structural MRI or functional MRI, and we would want to find out modality-specific mask, and then train those mask models on those modalities and see the overlap or like the intersection of the unions of the weights, or in the hope that we could potentially also find out like some semantic meanings if we analyze the activations and things like that. Or ideally, we would be able to separate out the effects of each modality. So that is one of the future works we are hoping to do. I actually don't have photos for this slide. I was making it, but another stretch goal is to have activation sparsity research for large language models, where we analyze the activations, and because like large language model activations are already sparse, so there's lots of.
You need some kind of illustration on this slide, and then nothing else.
Yeah, I have some
Don't
photos.
put like introduction, but put an illustration of what that is. And because it's a kind of a wishful thinking kind of slide. So you like you don't guarantee it, but you'll try.
Yeah.
That kind of slide.
Yeah, I'll put some distribution.
And you didn't say that the SSFL will be submitted in June. I want you to commit.
Maybe I'll say that. But yeah, this is the figure I was talking about for the Hoyer sparsity. On the left, we have the L0.
We have 5 minutes there. Like use them for questions instead of the appendix, which is
I think
probably
that's all. Yeah.
Thanks to Jay. Thanks for joining. If you can write your comments, that'd be nice in Slack there. But if people have comments, how can Riyasat improve his presentation, slides, anything?
This is for a proposal.
Yeah.
Right. I would maybe, I mean, the aims are awesome. I think that's like really great. I would maybe fit the planned work into your aims as well, and make it, because they want to see that you're proposing to do some additional work for your dissertation as well. And so that proposed work should fit, I think, within the aims of what the dissertation itself is going to be. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. Do you also suggest that I put some of the like future work for each of the aims? Or
the way that I think of it is like you're proposing what each of the chapters of your dissertation are going to be, and so you should have like a section for each chapter. And if you have like the preliminary work done on 3 of the chapters, you can say that, and then here's my 4th chapter, and here's what I'm going to finish, and the timeline for finishing that. That makes sense.
Yeah, like for aim 3 right now, the only thing to finish is submit the paper.
Yeah.
It's good to have all your work done. That's awesome. But you should also.
But maybe you can add this into aims.
Yeah, maybe.
But with a caveat, and then we will discuss as the.
I guess this easily falls with the aims, so maybe I can have
Which aim?
aim 3 like part 2.
Yeah.
That's a good
Put it
idea.
there, but also we may look at the timeline for the committee, and we may not recommend including it into the official contract.
Yeah.
Not a proposal. It's like,
okay.
Yeah.
We'll see. Like it depends. If you show us empty slide, I don't think people will be happy. Like, oh, he hasn't even started. Like, what's the?
Yeah, that's fair.
And I would make like a timeline slide as well, even if your timeline is like I already have everything done and I just want to submit over the next 6 months or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think I saw one timeline slide probably.
No, but his timeline is weird. It's like he will disappear in the black hole and reemerge in January.
Right.
He's going to decline.
Right.
And that's. I don't know how it will look there.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. But you have everything done. So
yeah.
you kind of deserve. A break.
So my question with this slide is this depiction accurate?
It's a cartoon.
It's a cartoon, yeah.
But is it
Yeah.
even in a cartoon sense, is it like a good depiction of what you expect the result will be? That the weights will not be shared between modalities, they will be unique.
They are shared.
They are shared, kind of. As you could see, like some of the nodes.
Right, but you're pruning, right? The gray ones go away and you end up with only the colored ones.
Yeah.
And they're not shared. I guess the nodes are shared.
Well, yeah.
Layer, but not the weights.
Yeah.
But the weights are shared too.
Yeah, the weights are shared.
So the
Maybe
Potential.
Yeah.
Potentially, but
We don't enforce it.
Yeah.
No control.
Yeah.
so that's what I wanted to clarify.
Yeah,
Because the figure
that's fair,
to me
actually.
was telling that it's all gonna be disjoint.
Yeah, that's like okay.
What?
Yeah, that's.
Maybe I'll have to overlap the colors.
But yeah, how do you? How do you display? It's a more of a deficiency of the visual language. How do we display it?
Because like if there's a yellow and red overlap, I would have to like find a margin color and stuff.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Make it dash.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I think the fact that they converge on, like maybe you could just have some more edges that share
More
nodes.
edges,
I think
yeah.
the fact that when they share nodes, at least for me, they use sharing weights, even though technically it's maybe not. But
Yeah.
Tension.
Maybe I'll put more colors.
Like
Like it just gets like too busy.
Yeah, Slack is the best to put your comments in. I've started already, so join there. Just responding to Shinho.
what's your proposal?
It's next Tuesday.
And like this one is confusing to me in terms of input and output.
Yeah.
Because when say blue modality 1 is the input, the entire output activates. It doesn't predict.
Right.
It predicts the same thing, say schizophrenia or not.
Mm.
The picture doesn't convey that. It's kind of like there is an output that is modality specific. No, the output is the same for all of the modalities.
Maybe I'll change it to the single output.
But it could be different.
Why?
I don't know, different tasks.
Maybe you could add different.
I don't know, like and for one modality, I imagine that even the losses could be different. I don't know, but you could be predicting something in time versus a label.
I think the scenario you're going to be doing that is going to be single task, multiple modalities, right?
Yeah, that's what we would initially start with. That's what we decided.
Certainly, you could have separate tests, separate modalities. Why not? But, yeah.
Or we can make
Like
the model predict the modalities as well. The model doesn't know what's on the
Oh, I'm just
one of the prediction could be the modality.
specified, so it's open. So if it's clear that there's one loss that's shared for the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's not the one loss, it's whatever is predicted is the same thing. It's not one thing that it predicts. There's an output head that is shared. It's just the same thing.
Yeah.
Like given this modality, do the same thing or the same menu of things.
You could do what you're describing as well, and then do a combination of this multimodal with the multitask approach and have like mask per modality and per output, but you know.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, for your comments, and please put more comments. Don't hesitate in Slack. We'll be happy to accommodate because there's a little time for that. And thank you, Riyasat. I think that was great. I liked animations.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks everyone for coming. Feel free to let me know anything that you feel could make the presentation better or anything like.
If you think it's unprintable, then DM me.
Yeah.